One of the things with John Boyd was he actually looked at the fighter pilots in Korea, and he was trying to determine during the Korean War why the United States had a 10-to-1 kill ratio, even though the MiG was actually superior, the Soviet aircraft was actually superior, and many of the Soviet pilots were actually stronger than the U.S. pilots. And what he found was that as the individual in the U.S. plane, the Falcon, was actually raised, it had a bubble canopy, so he had a 360-degree view of the entire field of conflict. But also he had a hydraulic, so he could move quicker. So the easiest way to describe observe, orient, decide, and act, which is the ODA loop, is it's not truly a loop. It is actually iterative loops, and not very circular either, and I'll show you that on the next slide. But if we were playing a game of chess, and you make one move, and then I make 6 moves very quickly before you make the next move, and I'm able to move faster than you, I'm going to win the game. Does it violate the rules of chess? Yes, it does. But in a conflict, there really are no rules. Or at least if you study strategy in conflict, there are varying theories of, should there be rules, should there not be rules. The object of, unfortunately, conflict or warfare conflict is to win. So in your book, it has this as the observe, orient, decide, and act. This is wrong. I left this in. But what you can do is I'll put up another piece on Blackboard that will actually show you what the ODA loop should look like. It is actually, if I were to draw this here, we basically observe and we get a whole bunch of inputs. From the observe, we orient ourselves. But when we orient ourselves, there's a loop back to this observe. So we may change our observation based on our orientation. And if we're okay with the orientation, we will then decide what to do. But then when we decide what to do, that may be a point back to reorient ourselves or re-observe the entire field. And if we're okay with the decision, then we act. And when we act, again, we may reevaluate our decision, we may reevaluate the orientation, we may reevaluate our observation before we actually act. So I'll put that on as well. It won't be on these slides, but it'll be on Blackboard itself. So requisites for successful real-time management, basically focus on high-value data. We want to make sure that we identify all the key activities and performance indicators because this is a lot of data that's needed. Real-time data requires a significant amount of processing, significant amount of storage of data. Technology readiness, substantial computing resources. Again, you will need large equipment. When I say large equipment, I mean you're going to need software that's going to be very complex. If we're doing things like big data in order to do some of this, you'll have terms like Hadoop. You'll have other types of big data types of databases. You might have NoSQL types of databases. Some of the things that we talked about in one of the previous modules. So the conclusion is use IT to support decision making covers a variety of functions including alert, recommendation, or the decision making itself. Computer supported decision making needs to be monitored. We have to monitor what we're doing because sometimes it may be wrong or our intuition may be different. Computers can only do so much based on the logical framework it's given and based on the information it's given. Human beings, on the other hand, can work off of intuition, sometimes based on their experiences or based on a gut feel that they even cannot explain. They can actually make a decision that is the antithesis of what a logical decision would be. Game theory in economics might suggest that this is irrational behavior if you only look at payoffs. But I'm sure many of you know that there are times when your intuition has taken over and said, I should be in this place, but I'm going to do this instead. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. IS managers have to understand the potentials and limitations of this as well as the complexities because implementing this is a large endeavor. Usually it's very complex and many times it fails unless it's done properly and done with the right resources. So that concludes this chapter of Module 12. We'll see you for Module 13.